I just want to talk about sex and sexuality and sexual issues and such tonight, because I think that'll be fun. And not enough is said on the issue, I think. I think people need to talk about sex more. And I don't mean talk about sex as in, like, who they're going to have sex with, or, their last sexual venture, or, whatever sexual victories they've had. That's stupid. I mean sex, as in the deeper levels of sex and sexuality. I think people have really degraded the whole sex thing. I think sex is beautiful, and people they see sex as a sport or as an object, or just another thing that we do. And I think that's really degraded it. I think that sex is a lot deeper, it's a lot more spiritual and emotional than people treat it as these days. And that's very sad, I think. And so, I think when people, especially Christians, I'm just going to deal with Christians for right now. When Christians start to have sexual issues and problems, they are afraid to talk about it because somehow sexuality in its degraded form is too worldly to admit that you have problems with it. But I think that it's time for people who know God to redeem sex and sexuality and be able to talk about it. And when you have a problem with it, talk about it, admit it. My thoughts are probably going to be very scattered tonight. I'm not really following an agenda or anything. I'm just kind of talking, so bear with me. Yeah, people don't talk about sex enough, and then when they do, it's always in kind of like, I guess, a chauvinistic, macho sort of way. Even the women do it like that. They just treat it as crap. Whatever happened to, teaching your kids sexuality from a moral, godly, strong perspective, so that they get a very strong appreciation for sex and sexual issues? I think that's the way it should be done. I think parents need to start talking to their kids about sex from an early age, even. As soon as they start discovering themselves, their parents need to step in and train them up in righteousness and godliness, and tell them about sex and the goodness of sex and how wonderful their sex organs are, and how God created them to appreciate His creation of sex and sexuality and all that wonderful sex stuff. I think that too many people are afraid of talking about it. I don't see what the big deal is about sex myself. I mean, I used to be very shy about talking about sex, but as you can see now, I'm not anymore. And so I find a great deal of freedom in talking about sex, because like I was telling some friends of mine, when you talk about stuff and express yourself honestly and sincerely, and you confess everything, and you have nothing else to hide, then you have no reason to fear what people might say or think about you. There's that level of freedom that you find in complete transparency, when nobody can spread a rumor about you because you've already told everything that's been hiding in your closets. That's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of freedom in that. And so, yeah, I think that people who have problems talking about sex and sexuality generally have a lot of fears and hang-ups about it. Things that they don't want to confess or admit to themselves, or much less other people. There was something that a guy at my church told me a couple of years ago. We were talking about masturbation or porn or sex or something like that, I don't know what, but he said, and he's a father, he has kids, and I think he's teaching his kids about sexual stuff too, and I think that's great. But he said, sexuality and masturbation and lust and porn, they're all a part of life. And you've got to learn to deal with life and life issues and all the crap that comes with life. And if you can't deal with the issues of life, then you're going to have a lot of problems in life. So, maybe you may be some godly person or something, but if you fall to pieces when somebody starts talking about masturbation, or you freak out when somebody starts talking about how homosexuality is so prevalent in the church, then you're having some problems in life, and you need to admit it and, work through it. And when you do, you'll find a lot of freedom and liberty in that, because the Bible says, what is it? Oh God, I forgot. The truth shall set you free. Yes, that's what it is. The truth shall set you free. And if you're not being truthful, and you're not being honest, and you're not confessing what you're having problems with, then you can't get through it, and you will never find that freedom to overcome, that freedom to be fearless in the face of sexual discussion. So my point is, tonight, talk about sex, because it's not talked about in a mature, godly fashion enough. And get over your fears and talk about stuff with your people, and especially with your kids if you have kids. Because if you don't ever talk about sex with your kids, then they'll grow up thinking that sex is wrong and evil, or at least taboo, and you should never talk about it. And it could possibly cause them to want to suppress and repress their sexuality, grow up with a lot of confusion and silence toward the issue, not ever voicing their problems or asking questions about it that they generally have. And if they don't ever get answers to their problems, and if they never come out and talk about what they're dealing with and struggling with, then they'll never get the help that they need. And that could just breed all sorts of problems. That's where the whole idea of coming out of the closet comes from. Unfortunately, the secular, unsaved world has taken that idea and turned it around to praising homosexuality for a liberating experience. I think that people who are dealing with sexual issues in secret should come out of the closet, but not necessarily to accept them as normal or healthy or just the way that they are. Nobody is born a porn addict. Nobody is born addicted to sex. Nobody is born addicted to lust. So if you're having problems or issues or fears toward any of these issues, you need to come out of the closet and talk about it and admit it to somebody and get the help that you need. So, yeah, kudos to you who are doing that. I love you, and I praise your efforts. Keep it up.